Hello and welcome to Americans Learn. My name is Lauren, and today I am going to be looking at a video that was recommended, I believe, by channel member Pterodactylus. So hello, thank you so much for recommending this. They also recommended the last Irish and Finland video that I reacted to, and this one, I believe, was actually suggested on the other channel, on Chicago Reacts, talking about Finnish myths and Tolkien's love for them. And look, I'm looking forward to watching this. I know basically nothing about Finnish myth, and I hadn't really considered how limited my knowledge of mythology actually was. I know a lot about like Greek myths, Norse myths. I know some like Hindu and Egyptian, Mayan. Like I know bits and pieces of a lot of different mythologies, but I had never heard of Finnish myth. I know nothing about it. So I am very much looking forward to seeing how we get from this Kalevala to Middle-earth. And thanks again for the recommendation. Oh dear. Hello. Whee! Don't you love it when the camera shifts and I don't notice? Always fun. Let's begin.
It is probable that more people alive have read Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings saga than have read the Bible. A very small number of those readers, however, will be familiar with the collection of Finnish
Do we think?
folk
I
ballads
was gonna say.
known as the Kalevala.
I was gonna say, do we think? But then he said alive. To be fair, he did say more people alive. So that might actually be true.
A very small number of those readers, however, will be familiar with the collection of Finnish folk ballads known as the Kalevala. Let alone be aware of the enormous influence they had on Tolkien's internationally adored mythical cosmos and his first attempt at writing mythical prose.
Okay.
The story of Kullervo, one of Tolkien's earliest pieces of fiction that was essentially a reworking of a story from the Kalevala, and one of the most stunningly unusual and dismally tragic stories in the history of all known folklore. In a lecture given in 1914, the year he wrote the story of Kullervo, Tolkien would explain his attraction to these Finnish stories, describing them as a rich profusion and luxuriance, queer and strange, unrestrained and grotesque.
Interesting. Okay.
Alerting his refined and scholarly audience to the unprecedentedly animistic character and primitive tone of these stories.
I think, okay, animistic, like animosity, right? So I guess that this particular hero is maybe a little bit more aggressive than some of his other heroes in later books. Also interesting that this was written in 1914. So, because like I feel everyone talks about how like the Lord of the Rings is about, you know, the horrors of war and like things that he saw during and after World War I. So it is interesting that he wrote this book of this. It sounds like it was a lot bleaker, like without a happy or even bittersweet ending, it sounds like. So he wrote that before Lord of the Rings, which it does have a bittersweet ending. Like the good guys technically win at the end of Return of the King, but it's kind of like, but they're all forever changed and it's still difficult. So it's just, again, I think that's interesting. I don't know if that actually has any merit on anything at all.
He declared that on reading the Kalevala, we are taking a holiday from the whole course of progress of the last 3 millennia and going to be wildly un-Hellenic and barbarous for a time.
Okay.
The Kalevala consists.
I wonder if he's saying like unHellen, like because like Greeks, right? It was like the Hellenistic thing. So okay, this is just something totally off the cuff. I have no idea. But was he considering like Greeks and like that kind of mythology to be a lot more like refined or highbrow or something as opposed to whatever's happening over in Scandinavia? Because I do know that Norse myths are metal AF. And I am going to assume, based on stereotyping Finland as people like as a badass kind of place. I'm assuming Finnish myths are just as metal, if not more so. So is that like, it's not as I feel like maybe there's more like blood and guts and infighting. I don't know, because Greek myths got pretty wild, yo. But people also misinterpret Shakespeare as being highbrow. So I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea. But it sounds like if we're talking about going to a more barbarous thing, then, and if he's talking about Hellenic, like Greek mythology, I think that's what and you know what? If I'm wrong about what Hellenic means, like, or Hellenistic writings, if I'm wrong about that being Greek, then just disregard everything I just said.
Passed down orally over generations and was compiled in written form by Elias Lönnrot in 1835. Rather like the Grimm brothers in Germany, Lönnrot was driven along with the North European wave of national romanticism to make a vital written record of folklore culture and the particular language that was fast dying out.
I like that. That's so good.
Full translation in English in 1888. And Tolkien first encountered
Save those languages
in 1911 when he was a student at King Edward's School in Birmingham. Immediately fascinated with the book, which he described as a collection of wild, uncivilized and primitive tales.
Sounds a bit judgy.
He borrowed a book on Finnish grammar and attempted to read the Kalevala in the original Finnish.
Oh, that's cool though.
Now, to the reassurance of readers trying to learn Finnish, Tolkien, an expert in languages, said that the Finnish language makes a strong bid for the place of the most difficult in Europe. Tolkien's choice of the tale of Kullervo as his first attempt at working out a mytho-poetic form of prose is notable. Kullervo, a tragic and yet impressively resilient character, has an inauspicious start in life. While in his mother's womb, he survives the massacre of his tribe by his father's jealous brother, Untamo, who then takes Kullervo's mother to be as his wife. When Kullervo is only 3 months old, Untamo overhears him vowing to revenge the death of his father's tribe and attempts to kill him numerous times. Although accursed,
a 3-month-old?
Not without a protective magic.
No, go back, sorry. A 3-month-old was able to deflect him, though. I don't know how that jumped ahead so far, but we're just going to do like a quick recap. 3 months old, he was able to not get killed by his uncle.
His father's jealous brother, Untamo, who then takes Kullervo's mother to be as his wife. When Kullervo is only 3 months old, Untamo overhears him vowing to revenge the death of his father's tribe and attempts to kill him numerous times. Although accursed, Kullervo is not without a protective magic that foils his uncle's attempts.
Oh, okay, so it explained it immediately.
Albeit massively disgruntled. In Untamo's household until he is sold into slavery. Kullervo's magic continues to bless and blight him in equal turns. And as he pursues his lust for revenge, his fate only thickens until lifted finally by the hope of love. This particular...
Is this maybe what the movie The Northman was about? I thought that was about Vikings, but I don't know. I didn't actually watch it.
A girl turns out to be his long-lost sister.
Uh-oh.
An unwitting incest that leads to double suicide. Kullervo's fate seems sealed whichever path he takes.
Okay, that's very Oedipus.
Comparative ethographer, Tolkien was drawn to the underlying tragic, heroic connections of Kullervo, Beowulf, and the Norse hero Sigmund. Despite these comparisons, Tolkien was struck by how the Finnish tales had an earthy, poetic logic, quite unlike anything he had come across. "I am very fond of these poems," he declared in his 1914 lecture. "They are literature so very unlike any of the things that are familiar to general readers. They are so un-European and yet could only come from Europe." Unlike the kindred mythology of Europe, he observed with the stories of the Kalevala, "You are at once in a new world," he said, "and can revel in an amazing new excitement. You feel like Columbus on a new continent." Tolkien saw it as significant.
Now we can say you'll feel, I don't know, not Columbus, maybe somebody else. But we are, if we're immediately transported into a new world, exploring like the coolest new things, I kind of want to read these. Like I said, I went through like a rather long mythology phase that I never really grew out of, but like I just kind of fell into a habit of revisiting old faves. But yeah, I think I might need to find this Kalevala, read it. It sounds interesting.
To an appreciation of the Kalevala that Finland was one of the last lands in Europe to convert to Christianity, thereby leaving a more recent legacy of paganism than traced in other European countries. Tolkien's encounter with Finnish folklore, then its magical and richly textured topography as well as its language, was a powerful lyrical and mythical encounter which he interpreted in terms of the theories of comparative mythology of his era.
All right, that
as well
sounds
as
cool.
a starting point for the development of Middle-earth, its various peoples, genealogies, language, and geography. So in the
Wow, that's everything.
1914, ensconced in his rooms at Oxford University, he began working on the story that would mark the origins of the enormous influence of Finnish mythology on his work. Although Tolkien could make certain correspondence with other known myths, it was the distinctly otherworldly and yet undoubtedly human nature of the Kalevala that made the most impression on him.
Okay.
Drawing him to the odd yet powerfully rendered persona he would call a race of unhypocritical scandalous heroes and sadly unsentimental
Oh,
lovers.
okay.
Tolkien experts have written much on the influence.
That's fun though, because that seems like, you know, it does sound more human. You know, I mean, like the Greeks, their myths, a lot of the heroes in that, they're so controlled by like what the gods, you know, are interfering with. But if these if they're less god interference, that could be incredibly fascinating to read.
Of the Kalevala on the universe of Tolkien's work. The cosmology, the tragic, deceitful, flawed, fated, and cherished characters, the shamans, the magic of the song, the topography of domestic and distant lands, and not least the parallel between the epic pursuit of the Kalevala's mysteriously beneficent object of the Sampo and Tolkien's Rings of Power. Tolkien's rendering of the story of Kalevala is a study that he would adapt and develop into his own mythical world, notably using Kalevala as the model for his character Turin Turambar from the Children of Hurin.
I like the little iguana on his
was
helmet.
also living under a curse. Turin, after years of ill fortune, finally believes the curse lifted and takes a wife, only to discover from the spiteful last words of a dragon he kills that she is in fact his long-lost sister.
Okay.
As in the story of Kalevala, she kills herself, and then he kills himself in turn. In a letter to his friend...
It is interesting how many, like, accidental incests happen in old mythology. Like, because the gods themselves are basically all related, but presumably they don't have, like, DNA to make that as much of an issue. But it is interesting that it keeps popping up, and sometimes it's super, super bad and everyone kills themselves, and other times it's still not great, but they do it anyway. I feel like that's, I don't know. Was this always there because, you know, rich and, like, you know, powerful families were constantly, like, intermarrying each other to keep power in the family, and they knew, and people in general knew it was a bad idea from the word go. So they had all of these, like, myths and stuff about how terrible it actually is. I don't know, I'm making stuff up.
Poet W.H. Auden. Tolkien wrote in 1955 of his indebtedness to the Kalevala and Kalevala. The germ of my attempts to write legends of my own to fit in my private languages was the tragic tale of the hapless Kalevala in the Finnish Kalevala.
Okay.
It remains a major matter in the legends of the First Age, which I hope to publish as the Silmarillion, he wrote.
Did
was
he?
not only the remarkable mytho-poetic stories of the Kalevala that inspired Tolkien, but also the phonetic resonance of the language that led him to study Finnish grammar and to develop his own legendary language, which he called Quenya. This elfish language, known to all fans of the Peter Jackson films, was inspired by the languages that Tolkien said gave him the greatest pleasure.
Okay. So anta means give, kala fish, kulta gold, lapsi child, nasta a thumbtack or a pin, rauta tie, tie, charava tula. Okay, that's cool. And then anta hala kulda lapse. Nasta, Rauta. Sometimes he just used the same word. That's kind of funny.
Finnish
Tereva.
and Greek. Discovering
Finnish and
Finnish
Greek.
was, Tolkien wrote to Auden, like discovering a complete wine cellar filled with bottles of an amazing wine of a kind and flavour never tasted before.
Aw, he's such a language nerd. I love it.
He wrote.
It's adorable.
Tolkien was clearly drawn to the story of Kalervo and the tales of the Kalevala, because not only did they represent a rich, primitive and poetic mentality of a people undetached from nature, but because they told in a visceral and lyrical manner of the perennials of human love and suffering, not only of the magical entities but also of very human characters who behave with a singular lack of conventional dignity and with a readiness for tears and dirty dealing. Why read of Kalervo and the Kalevala? Well, let's get Tolkien to answer this one. As he said,
Okay.
you should read the Kalevala for the delight of the earth, the wonder of it, the essential feeling as of the necessity for magic, that juggling with the golden moon and silver sun that is man's universal pastime. These are the things to seek in the Kalevala.
Oh, I also like the little smoke monster thing he made. Oh, it was so cute. Good for him. That was adorable. And also an interesting twist on the, usually think of the golden sun and the silver moon, but he twisted it on us. All right, well, I maybe should read the Kalevala. It sounds actually really, really interesting. So, again, thanks to the Pterodactylus for suggesting this. I am looking forward to more. Like, that's really cool. And again, I definitely need to learn more about Finnish myths now. They sound fascinating. So if you got any more suggestions for me, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Other mythologies as well that I have missed. Tell me where to find stuff about them, because now I want to know, and now I need to reopen that chapter of being interested in mythology. I mean, again, like I said, I never actually stopped being interested in mythology, but now I want to delve back in. So thanks again for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Show Irish in Finland some love. I'm giving him a like on this video. So go ahead and go give him some love as well, and I will see you all next time.